Hey, side by side ladies. So right now I have my phone taped to a wooden spoon, which is taped to a cardboard box, and we're gonna try to do this little video on calligraphy. So I'll split it up into a couple parts in this one video. The first, I'll just show you what you can do to do some calligraphy to pretty up an envelope with just what you have around the house, pencil or pen, and then I'll show some of the more, if you want to call it like specialty tools or whatever for calligraphy if you are interested in trying out that. So one of the things, modern calligraphy is kind of hard to define because it's not like copperplate with a lot of different rules. It's kind of just whatever your own style is. It's just pretty handwriting, but there are some things to kind of help you achieve a certain look, and one of those is to work on having a really consistent slant. So copperplate is a 55-degree angle. There's no rule that says that modern calligraphy has to be that, but I like it that way, and I just found this, I think I Googled something like 55-degree angle grid or something like that online, and came up with this and printed it off and used it when I was first starting out to make a bunch of templates. So I made like this template, and basically it just helps you instead of making an M or something just straight up and down, you tilt it so that what would be vertical lines are not that 55-degree angle. So it's helpful with that. And then it can help you, you don't have to figure out the spacing every single time you're doing an envelope. You can just plop your envelope on here and then grab your ruler, like my fancy Christopher ruler. This is the only ruler we have actually. And just line it up and do the pencil lines that way. And then you can also put some slant guides if you want. I don't do that still with wedding envelopes because you eventually kind of get the hang of sort of approximately that 55-degree angle. Another really helpful tool if you're doing it a lot, and it's what I use now, is just to go buy one of these laser liners, because then instead of having to do pencil lines, you can just put your envelope on top of your template and then line the laser lines up with the template and then use that as kind of your guide, and then you don't have any lines to draw or erase, and it speeds the whole process way up. Another thing is the whole idea of thick downstrokes and thin upstrokes, and I was playing around with this earlier actually when I was trying to record this video the first time, and I had written out kind of some examples. If you just write it out, there's not really a difference in just a regular pen. Even if you were, so normally in calligraphy, if you're using like a dip pen or a pointed pen or some sort of calligraphy pen, oftentimes if you press down on the downstrokes hard, if you apply pressure on the paper, it will make a thicker line, and then if you go up, it'll make a thinner line. But on these pens, you can't really see that very well, and same with the pencil usually, especially like a mechanical pencil. So it can be nice to do faux calligraphy where you just come in, and anytime you would have had a downstroke, you just go ahead and thicken it up like this, and it kind of gives the illusion of calligraphy, even though you are having to kind of go back over it with a second pass. Another thing to try to kind of keep in mind is the idea of trying to kind of have a loose hand, which can be hard when you're trying to do the pointed pen, but you can see the difference between this one and this one. This one, all the letters line up on the baseline like that, and that's fine, but it can be more fun, you know, if you write and it's not all exactly on the line. So without further ado, I'll show you some of the different calligraphy things that you can buy. And real quick, I'll say that one really good resource is a website/blog called The Postman's Knock. It's where I learned basically everything when I first started out with calligraphy. I followed her instructions to a T, and pretty much everything she said to order, and her tutorials are so helpful. So I would really recommend that. She sells like kits and things like that and templates, but a lot of her stuff you can get for free, and it's a really fun website to check out. So starting out, I started with this straight pen holder. So a dip pen or a calligraphy pen is two parts. It's the nib, which is interchangeable, and then this holder. And the straw holder is nice because it's more like a regular pen, so you're maybe more used to holding it. I really like this Generals one. I get all my nibs and my holders and everything from a place called Paper and Ink Arts, and it's an online store and they have good prices. What she suggests starting out with is a nib called the Nico G. I started out with it. It's fine. I actually prefer something called the Browse 66EF, which stands for extra fine. And you can find that on the Paper and Ink Arts website. It's just, I like it better. The tines are a little bit, you can see on here, the way these work is when you push down, it opens up these tines to make the thick downstroke, and then when you go up, they squeeze back together to make the really thin downstrokes. And the Nico G, wherever I put that, just has stiffer tines, which I think for some beginners that can be easier because you're not gonna splat ink everywhere, but it can also make it, I don't know, it can tear the paper a little bit easier. I found it easier to use the Browse 66EF. And I also use this, which you can tell is different than a straight holder because it actually holds it at an angle. So you're actually a little bit closer to a 55-degree angle without having to crank your wrist around. And then inks, I really like this Ziller white ink, Northwind white. It's a really fun one to use. And another suggestion would be these Dr. P.H. Martin's iridescent. They're really fun. If you really want to play around and have fun, you can actually use these. These are watercolors, but they are a lot of fun, and you basically just get a watercolor brush wet and paint the nib of your pen. And she actually has tutorials for how to use these fine tech watercolors, but they are a lot of fun, and you can use them to make calligraphy that's kind of metallic. So in terms of having fun and dressing up an envelope, here's one that I already started here just to kind of save time. I just made up an address. I don't normally write out the pencil lines anymore, but I did not trust myself to talk and write anything remotely like English letters at the same time. And what I do, these are a real pain to get ink out of now that they changed them to the square bottles, which I was annoyed at. They used to have the perfect bottles, but I guess we all have our cross to bear. So I use, now I just pour them into, I think this was the top off of a dry shampoo bottle, so I pour it into that. And then the other thing before you get started is to make sure you have a little cup of water, which I have kind of a dirty one here that already has ink in it. And a paper towel so that you can wipe off your nib because the ink kind of gets gummed up in here. So different tips for having fun and kind of dressing up an envelope. Once you kind of have the lines all set, I think it kind of makes it fancy to go ahead and spell out the state instead of just doing like the postal code abbreviation. So that kind of makes it fun, and also doing the zip code on another line I think is just a way to make it seem a little bit fancier. And in terms of finding like inspiration for envelope art or different fonts or whatever, a few suggestions. One thing that I have done in the past, well, okay, to start with, again, I would just recommend the Postman stock. She has a bunch of different calligraphy fonts that you can kind of test out, and then you can start kind of seeing, oh, I like my M's done this way, or, you know, maybe you don't like that R, but you can go find an R from somewhere else, and you begin developing something that is a little bit more unique to you, or looks a little bit more like your own style. Another thing that you can do that's kind of fun that I've done before is just go to font websites, like free font websites that let you type in a phrase and then see what it looks like in a bunch of different fonts. I think the one I'm thinking of, although I don't remember if this is right, I think the one I'm thinking of is called dafont.com, DAFONT.com. But you can just Google free fonts and see if you can find something like what I'm talking about, because I don't really remember. But you can put in the phrase or whatever that you wanted. I actually did that for in our bathroom cabinet. I had some like plastic containers to organize things, and I had a white paint pen, but I didn't really want to do my same style of calligraphy, and so I just Googled some different fonts and found a font and mimicked it, and it was fun. And so you don't just have to do envelopes, you can do all sorts of different labels or tags or things like that. And again, I think it's just kind of fun to spell out the name. You can also, I've really enjoyed Instagram for envelope art ideas. Even if you just put in the hashtag modern calligraphy or envelope art or mail art, you can see some of the different like birthday cards or whatever that I've done on my Instagram, which is, Thacker Calligraphy Co. And then something that I do on the zip code that I think is kind of fancy is I make it really wide and kind of spanning along the bottom. It's just an idea to kind of make it a little bit different. You can do lots of different ways. And you notice I actually had pencil lines, so I didn't have to do this, but one way to kind of get it lined up is to do the center one first and then go out to the edges and then fill in the middle, and it kind of helps you get it lined up. So I hope that that was fun, and I hope that you feel inspired, and if you want to play around with doing calligraphy, that you had some fun inspiration for that. So looking forward to being able to get together in person whenever that happens again, and love you all. Thanks for watching.